Yo, this is Teresa Weatherspoon, better known as Teaspoon, and you're watching Real Fans, Real Talk.
Live from the can. Vibe the can.
This is Real Fans, Real Talk. Real fans, real talk. We as real as you thought. Real fans.
What's going on? Welcome to another live edition of Real Fans, Real Talk. It's 2025, man. It's different, man. It's a new year and whatnot. Still, you know what I'm saying. We got a lot going on. I'm recovering today. I didn't wear my sunglasses because I didn't want to hide my eyes and then y'all think, you know what I'm saying, it's worse than what it was. Eric, you know I got a nephew that's a diehard Baltimore Ravens fan. I had to calm him down. He was getting all misty out. He gonna call me before the last touchdown. I'm gonna cry if we don't win this game. I had to talk him up and get him, get back to normal. Then they scored the touchdown. He called me back. He was so excited. But my cable is, sometimes depending on where you at, the cable be ahead, but 30 seconds to a minute. So he didn't know Mark Andrews had dropped that 2-point conversion at that point. And I was heartbroken because I didn't want to be the one to tell him, but I just texted him. I said, I'm sorry, buddy. But we here though. We shout out to Nesta over at the Hot Seat Podcast, big Bills fan. But let me introduce my co-host, my brother, Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in 2 Games. What's going on, man?
What's good, bro? Shout out to your nephew, man. I was thinking about you during the game. Before the game, I text you. I had conversations. I know we're going to get into the Ravens. So before we get to that, man, as always, super excited to get into it because I thought we had a great weekend of games this past weekend. And now we're at that point, possibly the greatest weekend in the NFL. I know everybody gets excited for the Super Bowl, but to me, I think Conference Championship Week is the most exciting because now we get down to who is going to be playing in the Super Bowl. And a lot of times history has shown us that these are some classic games that we get during Conference Championship Week. So let's get to it, man. Let's just get right to it.
We got the AFC representatives in the championship game, the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, led by Mr. Mount Rushmore, Patrick Mahomes. And on the NFC side, it's an NFC East affair. You got the Washington Commanders. I know they're excited, down where you at right now, Eric. I know they're going crazy out there. Versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's start with the NFC. This is going to be a big game. I know, obviously, the Eagles are the favorite in this one. Do you give, or how much of a chance do you give Washington to win this game?
They got a legitimate chance. And I want to say this because on air right here, Real Fans, Real Talk, we said a couple weeks ago, the Eagles were starting to play their best ball. And I even have gone as far as to say Saquon legitimately should have been in an MVP conversation. I know everybody was talking about Lamar and Josh, and that was all the talk leading up to yesterday. But Saquon was on the cusp of breaking the single-season rushing record. Saquon was phenomenal the last 2 months of the season. And in these playoffs, the Eagles have won because of their defense and because of the contributions of Saquon Barkley. Jalen Hurts has not played well at all. And my concern and the reason why I give the Commanders a legitimate shot on Sunday is that I watch an Eagle team that struggles to put consistent drives together. If it's not Saquon breaking off a big run, they struggle, Trip, to go on 8, 10, 12-play drives and score touchdowns. It really is boom or bust with them. It's either they hit a big play and they score a touchdown, or they struggle and they get off the field and they don't score anything and they have these very unproductive drives throughout the game. There was no reason that the Rams were in that game yesterday. And that's
Saquon a bust. Not boom bust.
Saquon a bust. There was no reason, and no disrespect to the Rams because I thought they played a strong game. They shot themselves in the foot. The Karen Williams fumble really hurt them when they were when they were back in that game and they were down 1 at that point. Turnovers hurt them. And then their O-line really betrayed them, especially late, because Jalen Carter dominated that game late to get sacks and to create the fumble on Matthew Stafford. That really was the difference in that game. But when you look at that game, it seemed like the Eagles had control of it. But then when you kind of thought about it, you're like, wait a minute, Jalen Hurts hasn't really done anything in this game. It's another lackluster performance from Jalen Hurts. We're deep in the fourth quarter, and A.J. Brown has one catch. Devontae Smith was damn near non-factor all game. It really was Saquon and a couple passes to Dallas Goedert and their defense that won this game. And from what I'm seeing from the Commanders, is a team that's not only very confident, but an offense that is moving the ball, Trip. This is not a fluke. They are moving the ball up and down the field. They're putting a lot of pressure on the defense with their no-huddle offense, and they're so aggressive on fourth down, you can't take a break and think, oh, we stopped them on third, the drive is over. Dan Quinn has shown I'll go for it on fourth down if I feel comfortable with it, and it doesn't matter where we're at. We could be on our side of the field. If I like the matchup, I'm going for it. And Jaden Daniels has played well above the level of any rookie quarterback ever in the playoffs. I think they have a legitimate chance. Also, don't overlook the fact that they've played each other twice already. In their last meeting, the Commanders turned the ball over 5 times and still won. So they're going to be confident against this defense. They dropped 36 points in their last meeting against this Eagle defense. They're not going to be intimidated by the Eagles.
Yeah. If I was the Philadelphia Eagles, I would be on full alert this game because, and again, obviously matchups are different. It's going to be a different matchup when you're talking about the Rams and you're talking about Washington. But you're absolutely correct when you say this team is going to basically run on Saquon Barkley. And if you can manage to contain Saquon Barkley, and you're not getting anything close to what we saw from Jalen Hurts a couple of years ago when he was in the MVP race, it's going to be a long night for the Philadelphia Eagles because it really is Saquon a bust. There was a play late in the game where I think it was like a 3rd and 10. And the Eagles were like in their red zone, and it's a little short dump pass to Saquon Barkley. He just runs it up for 10 yards, and I'm just like, when I first saw the play, I'm like, there's no way this play is gonna work. But then I realized it's Saquon Barkley, and he can make all things happen, and he runs up for 10 yards, and I'm just like, wow. You mean to tell me they can't even get none of their wide receivers, and they got some really good wide receivers? A 10-yard pass, you can throw back in the backfield to Saquon, and he's just gonna run up and disrespect your whole defense like that. They're gonna have to change some things around and figure something out because I don't think they'll be able to run through the rest of the playoffs and it only be Saquon Barkley producing. I just don't think it's gonna work.
Yeah, I don't like I said, I don't like anything I saw from the Eagles yesterday. As you mentioned, not only Saquon running the ball, 26 carries for 205 yards yesterday. He added another 4 catches for 27 yards, right? We're talking 230 total yards of Saquon Barkley. To give you a full scope of what that really means, the Eagles had 350 total yards yesterday. 230 of that is all Saquon. Jalen Hurts, by the numbers, threw for 127 yards. When you take away the sack numbers, they had 60 yards passing yesterday, Trip. And I know people will say, oh, it was the snow. The weather played a factor. Matthew Stafford threw for over 300 yards yesterday in the snow. So don't tell me the snow. The snow is no reason why Jalen Hurts somehow can't connect with his receivers. When I'm watching Matthew Stafford behind an old line that's getting pushed around, still finding ways to get the ball to Puka, finding ways to get it to Tyler Higbee and get everybody involved. I don't like.
They were sticking around. They
were hanging around, and I'm be honest. I don't like. This isn't one of those situations where you say, oh, you get a moral victory because you hung around. No, I'm saying this legitimately because I don't like what I've seen from the Eagles through their first 2 playoff games. I didn't think they were that great against the Packers. The Packers shot themselves in the foot in that game multiple times with the turnovers, missed field goals. That game was 10-3.
And half the roster being out.
Right. That game was 10-3 at the half.
Yeah.
And if not for that fumble to start the game, when the Eagles get the ball deep in Packer territory, the Eagles don't even score a touchdown in the first half of that game.
Yeah.
Right? And now this week, we watched them again. The Rams are hanging around. Jalen Hurts, I don't know what he was doing on that safety trip, because when they showed the replay, Saquon is wide open. You could just dump it off, as you mentioned, which they had done. And then not only does he take the safety, he doesn't even move. It's almost like he froze under pressure and it never tried to move. I don't know if the knee was a little more banged up than he let on, but this Eagle team has got to play a lot better, because I think this Commander offense is really rolling right now. And I don't think what the Eagles have done so far is going to be good enough to win that game. If I had to bet money on it, we're having this conversation on Monday. I definitely probably would still take the Eagles, but I'm not very confident in it because I like what I'm seeing from the Commanders offense, and I think they're going to have opportunities to move the ball on his defense.
Yeah, shout out to Imani. She said, "What up, fellas? Showing some love. I'm picking up some chicken wings for the game tonight. Always appreciate a woman that picks up chicken wings for the game.
Wings on game night, you can't lose."
Exactly. Shout out to Tyson as well. We've already been starting kind of giving you our thoughts, but he just says, "What's your thoughts on NFL playoff games this past weekend?" Again, going back to this Eagles-Washington game, I'm excited. I know the last time they played, Washington won, but Jalen Hurts did go out with a concussion in that game. The first game, obviously, the Eagles got them, but again, this is going to be two teams that have been very familiarized with each other at this point in the season. There's enough game tape on both of these teams, both of these quarterbacks. I'm excited. I think we're going to have a shootout here. I think this game is going to come down to the wire, and I love it for playoff football. I love that. So I'm excited for the championship game.
I'm super interested to see. I think Jaden Daniels has answered every question and every quiz that he's had to go up against through these playoffs. So when they played the Buccaneers kind of played more of a zone coverage and forced him to work his way down the field, and that's why that became more of a low scoring game. 23-20 in that game. The Buccaneers had a couple red zone stops as well. In this Lions game, the Lions went ultra aggressive with a lot of blitzing and allowed them to air it out. And as I think about this game playing out, like I said, I can see it both ways. I could see it becoming a shootout. I could see it being a game that is more low scoring because, again, this is their third time playing each other, so there's going to be a lot of film to study on both sides. But I just don't think the kid is going to be fazed by the moment. I think Jaden Daniels is going to play well, and it's going to be up to the Eagles defense to make a couple plays, and it's going to be up to, as we said, Saquon to be able to break off a couple big runs, because right now that has been their formula. I don't see anything from Jalen Hurts that would make me feel confident in Jalen Hurts performing in this game.
Yeah. I was laughing for a second because Imani is crazy. I'm going to say pause. I'm just going to put this up for Imani.
If you are right, if you want to put that up for Imani, but I was about to say, we could just laugh it off. We didn't have to put that question up.
I'll just say this. Saquon, you have a friend in Imani. She appreciates you and your modeling skills on the ESPN magazine. Shout out to Imani, yo. Nothing but love, man. She always holds us down. All right, and then on the AFC, Mahomes versus Josh Allen again. Josh Allen has not been able to get past the Patrick Mahomes test, or the Kansas City Chiefs test, I should say, because he doesn't go against Patrick Mahomes. This is not the same Chiefs team. They've dealt with injuries this season. But they did manage to get a great win, a very, very good win this past weekend as well. But again, the game is going to be played in Kansas City, so I don't think we'll have any issues with weather condition, affecting the game. Does Josh Allen get his first playoff win against Patrick Mahomes in this AFC Championship game?
Well, Trip, you and I, we coined the phrase 2 years ago. Remember when the Bengals were going into Arrowhead and their mayor was making statements and they were calling it Burrowhead. And you and I said then, rule number one of gambling is never go against Mahomes. And I'm not going against Patrick Mahomes either. Again, I think Josh Allen is the MVP of the league. I've said that multiple times. I thought that even before yesterday's game. But yesterday's game solidified it for me, not just because of the win, but because when you look at the amount of help that Lamar has offensively in comparison to Josh, you can see there's a drastic difference in those two teams. The Ravens were the more talented team. I still think the Ravens were the better overall team. They just kept shooting themselves in the foot yesterday. And when you look at Josh Allen, it is all predicated on Josh Allen. It's him moving around, avoiding pressure, finding open receivers, and then it's 4th and 2, and they're calling quarterback draws for him, right? They will do everything in their power to make sure he is handling the football in the most important moments of the game. So he is the MVP of the league for me. But the one thing we have seen is that he cannot beat the Kansas City Chiefs in the playoffs. And I don't want to hear anybody say, they beat the Chiefs in the regular season. They beat the Chiefs in the regular season last year as well, and they couldn't beat them in the playoffs. They had a game against the Kansas City Chiefs a couple years ago where they were up with 13 seconds left, and they couldn't beat them then. I do not think they can beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And you and I, we got to take our victory lap, because we know some of our supporters, they love to get at us when we're wrong about something. But there was something that we were 1,000% correct on, and it started from the very beginning of the season. You and I both said the reason that the Chiefs had a legitimate chance to three-peat was because how good this defense was and how good this defense is. They showed it again against the Texans. CJ Stroud looked great for 3 quarters. The game was close. People were wondering. And then guess what happened? Steve Spagnuolo said, wait a minute. I haven't even showed you all my defensive plays yet. And they started blitzing the hell out of CJ Stroud. And they had him on the run for the whole 4th quarter. And then next thing you know, the Chiefs are up double digits. And you were looking around like, man, Mahomes wasn't even that impressive today. He made some throws, but he wasn't even that impressive. They really got nothing out of the running game, because I think Kareem Hunt was their leading rusher with like 27 yards. Kelsey was the only receiver that really went off. After him, you had Xavier Worthy with about 46 yards. But the Chiefs' defense, their ability to get pressure, their ability to get stops and get off the field and flip field position is the biggest factor in this game. And I also said, I want this on record. I talked about it during the regular season game. I felt like the Chiefs held back, because if you look back at the regular season game when the Bills beat the Chiefs, Travis Kelce was pretty much a non-factor. They didn't even really throw in the ball in that game. I guarantee you, Travis Kelce, you could book it now, 7 catches for about $110 on Sunday. Travis Kelce will be a big factor in this game, and the Chiefs will remind you why they are the best team in football.
I mean, Eric, you pretty much said we don't bet against Patrick Mahomes. That should be against the religion right there. The betting against Patrick Mahomes should be against your religion right there.
And I really like Josh Allen, but it's if he can't do it now, he's never gonna do it.
Yeah, because Mahomes ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, but I just think that at a certain point, when you have complete control over a team or a situation, it becomes one of the things that no matter what you do, no matter what adjustments you make to your roster, it's never going to change. Remember those years when LeBron kept going against Toronto, and then it just every series seemed to get worse? Like it might have been competitive the first time they played, then the next time LeBron is just hitting game winners in the corner, and then they're sweeping Toronto, and then it gets to a point where it's like Toronto's good, but they ain't LeBron good. They not beating the Cavs. It's starting to feel that way with Buffalo. Buffalo is good. If Buffalo was playing anyone else, we probably would be very confident in Buffalo being able to win. But I've seen this movie a couple times, Trip. And that guy in the white and red jersey, those guys, that head coach, they're just on a different level, and I don't think Buffalo can beat them. I think the Ravens could have beat the Chiefs, though, if they would have played.
Yeah. And this is why, having home field is important, right? Because I probably would be giving the Bills a better chance, even though I'd still be picking the Chiefs. But if they were playing in Buffalo, I would give the Bills a much better chance to win this game. Here's the thing about the Chiefs. When you speak about that defense, they have a very young defense, which is led by a couple of veterans, one being Chris Jones, who's probably arguably the best at that position, right? But that defense has done so much. The culture has actually changed, because this is not an offensive team anymore at this point. I mean, obviously we know Patrick Mahomes is who he is and Kelsey is who he is. Love Pacheco, but he was hurt a lot this season. They done lost receivers this season. It's been the defense that has carried this team and put them in a position to still be able to have home field throughout, because nothing Patrick Mahomes did this season says Mount Rushmore, right? He didn't have that kind of a year. We can say that. But they continue to win. But you know why they continue to win? Because that defense has been excellent, and they don't turn the football over. And those are the two keys right there. Now you're telling me you got to go into Kansas City again and try to dethrone the champs. I think Baltimore not being there, because I do think that it would have been a better matchup for Kansas City. Baltimore not being there kind of leads the story into that three-peat direction. I just feel like this might be the time where we see the first three-peat in a while. Has the last
never happened.
It's never happened, right?
Never
So this might be the first ever three-peat in football. Because I can tell you right now, the way Washington turns the football over and the way Philly's offense is so hit or miss, that either one of those teams is going to have a problem dealing with Patrick Mahomes. And I think now this is leading the way for the Chiefs to three-peat.
Yeah, I mean, we've had teams that have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls, and we've had teams that have gone to 3 straight Super Bowls and won 2 out of those 3. But this would, if Kansas City wins on Sunday, this would be the first time in NFL history that not only is the team in 3 straight Super Bowls, but actually has the chance to win 3 straight Super Bowls. The other situations, teams had split where they had won one of the first 2, and then they win that third trip and they win 2 out of 3. This would be the first time that a team is the back-to-back champs in the Super Bowl for the 3rd time with a chance to win. Trip, we got a lot of slack from people a couple years ago when we were putting Mahomes on a Mount Rushmore because we had already foreseen what was to come. And now at 27 years old, Patrick Mahomes has been a starter for 7 years in the NFL. He has been to the AFC Championship 7 straight years. So when people say we're playing for Super Bowls, you're really talking about Patrick Mahomes. That's the definition of playing for a Super Bowl.
He's probably the only one playing.
Right. That's the definition of we're playing for Super Bowls. Because every year he's either in the Super Bowl or the AFC Championship playing for a chance to be in the Super Bowl. If they win on Sunday, to give more context to it, if they win on Sunday, now you're telling me this young man would have played in 5 of the last 7 Super Bowls.
That's crazy. That's crazy, bro.
I mean, we're talking, like I said, at 27 years old, he has a chance to be in his 5th Super Bowl. Again, to put that into context with people, Brady played in 10 Super Bowls.
But that was
after
over
Brady
20 years though. Right.
Over a 20-year career, he played in 10 Super Bowls, right? So pretty much every other year. After Brady, the next closest in terms of quarterbacks is Elway, who played in 5 over the course of like a 15, 16-year career.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me Patrick Mahomes in 7 seasons could get to his 5th Super Bowl and already have played in the same amount of Super Bowls as Elway, would have played in more Super Bowls than Peyton Manning, would have played in more Super Bowls than Aaron Rodgers, Drew Brees, Dan Marino, any great quarterback you want to name, he would have already played in more Super Bowls than them. And most of those names, he already won more Super Bowls than them because he has more Super Bowl wins than he would have also played in more Super Bowls than Joe Montana. But he's already got more Super Bowl victories than Peyton Manning, Dan Marino, John Elway, Drew Brees, Aaron Rodgers. One more Super Bowl win already puts him in a conversation with Joe Montana, who's got 4 and he's got 3. Yeah. Like the only person that resume in terms of winning even stacks up to Patrick Mahomes at this point is Tom Brady. And like I said, we're talking about a 20-year resume in comparison to just what he's done in 7 years.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go you one better. And people, it's gonna be difficult for a lot of people to accept this, what I'm about to say. But if Patrick Mahomes wins the Super Bowl this year, if the Kansas City Chiefs win, led by Patrick Mahomes, the GOAT conversation just opened up. I'm gonna tell you that right now. Because when you look at the numbers, right, which is just not even take away championships and awards right now, right? Just the actual stats. Patrick Mahomes' stats to this point in his career, he far passes Tom Brady's stats from the start of his career to we say 7 years. He's way ahead of him. So now when you add in the MVPs, the Super Bowls, and now you be talking about him now having 4 Super Bowls in 7 years. That's actually a better ratio than Tom Brady because he's at 50%. That would be 4 out of 7 is crazy. So yeah, that the GOAT conversation opens. I mean, whenever Patrick Mahomes wins his next ring, no matter what, the GOAT conversation opens up. But if he three-peats into, because that would be something that Tom Brady never did. If he three-peats into his 4th ring, the GOAT conversation is now wide open. And I know there's gonna be a lot of people. There's a lot of and I have Tom Brady as the GOAT. But I'm opening up the GOAT conversation if Patrick Mahomes three-peats this year. And you got to give him his just due because of what he's accomplished and the amount of time he's accomplished it.
I 1000% agree. If he listen, without even getting too far ahead, if they win on Sunday and get to the Super Bowl, and we're talking about Mahomes in his 5th Super Bowl in 7 years, again, to put it into context, Brady's first 7 years in terms of numbers aren't even close to Mahomes.
Yeah.
Right? The numbers, Mahomes is miles ahead of Brady in terms of just the numbers. But then team success, Brady's first 7 years, he went to 3 Super Bowls. You're telling me Mahomes would have already been to 2 more Super Bowls than you have been to within a 7-year span?
Yeah.
And at 27 years old, I think it's safe to say that Mahomes is probably going to play for another 10 to 12 years.
Yeah.
So
barring injury. Yeah.
Right. Barring major injury. And I don't even know what classifies as major injury anymore because we saw Tom Brady. You know, we saw his whole knee get blown out with the ACL injury back in 2008. And from that point on, he came back and might have even been better than before the injury.
Yeah.
Right.
And let me ask you this too, Eric. Now, because we're having this, because what I just said about the GOAT conversation opens up, right? The GOAT conversation may have already even been opened if Patrick Mahomes doesn't lose 2 starting offensive linemen going into that Super Bowl versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The conversation may have already been open because now you're talking about he'd have a win over Tom Brady, and he'd already he would have 4 rings already. So
I mean, these are Patrick Mahomes' 3 losses in the playoffs, which even that in itself just sounds ridiculous to say. That in 7 years you've only lost 3 times in the playoffs, right? Yeah. They lost the overtime game to the Patriots when D Ford jumped off sides, and the Chiefs were about to win, and D Ford jumps off sides and gives the Patriots an extended drive. The Patriots score, and then they win in overtime. The Super Bowl against the Buccaneers when he was missing 4 of his 5 offensive linemen, and he was running for his life damn near the whole game, right? And then the game against the Bengals that they lose in overtime on a kick.
Yeah.
Outside of those 3 games, Patrick Mahomes has been flawless in the playoffs. And like I mentioned, AFC Championship game, Super Bowl, AFC Championship game. We're not talking about him having a bad wild card game. We're not talking about him having a bad divisional game. This is the definition of playing for Super Bowls.
Well, he barely plays wild card games, so that's why.
Well, all right, fair. But this is the definition of, that's what I mean by when I say playing for Super Bowls. These games are the highest intensity games you can play in every year.
Yeah,
it's every year. And I thought last year might have been his true defining moment because they didn't have home field advantage. They had to go on the road, right? They had to go into Buffalo and win. They had to go into Baltimore and win. Then they had to play the 49ers in the Super Bowl and come back and win that game. Oh, by the way, and every Super Bowl that he's won, he's been down at least 10 points and has come back in those games. That's crazy in itself as well. Like Mahomes, the conversation, as you said, has to be had if they at least get to the Super Bowl. But if they win the Super Bowl, you can make a legitimate debate and say Patrick Mahomes is on the cusp of being the greatest quarterback of all time. Tom Brady, what he's accomplished, he's not, Mahomes wouldn't be there yet because you can't compare 7 Super Bowls to the 4. But
obviously,
I just don't see, and I'm a big fan.
The door's open though.
Right. Trip, Peyton Manning's been my guy. I think Mahomes has surpassed Peyton Manning. Joe Montana is one of the greatest all time. I think Mahomes has surpassed Joe Montana. I really think the only guy in front of Mahomes at this point is Tom Brady.
Yeah, we established that already. I thought we established.
I mean, just to remind, because some people don't want to go that far, but I just think that's where it's at.
Patrick Mahomes is the 2nd greatest quarterback of all time right now.
Yeah.
There's no debate about it. the stats and the resume says he is the second best quarterback of all time, and he has only been in the league for 7 years.
Yeah.
Let it go. Like I know these are some of y'all heroes. Let it go. He is number 2 right now, and I'm gonna just say it. You know, barring a career-ending injury from Patrick Mahomes, he is going to be recognized as the GOAT when he retires.
Yeah, I think, and as long as he's able to keep winning, not at this pace, because I just think this pace is ridiculous. Again, to know that
he's already in the if he wins this year, if he wins his 4th Super Bowl this year, he's in the GOAT conversation now.
Oh, he has to be. Again, he has to be, because again, now you're talking about, when you talk about the quarterbacks who have 4 Super Bowls, in terms of GOAT, there's only one, and that's Montana.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I don't think he has to have 7 to be the GOAT. I think he just has to have a resume that can stack up. Because if Patrick Mahomes has 5, and let's just say he continues on the trajectory, accumulating the stats that he's going to accumulate, get a couple of more All Pros, a couple of more Pro Bowls, maybe another MVP. With 5 rings, he'd have enough for me to say, yeah, he's the GOAT.
Yeah.
Because again, this is, you do have to put a lot on the rings, but once you get to the point where you have multiple rings, then the other stuff starts to factor in, because again, this is a team sport, and this is not even like, see, in the NBA, I would even put more onus on the rings, because you play both sides of the ball. In football, you know what I mean? Tom Brady is not playing defense, he's not playing special teams. So I wouldn't put as much on the rings as, you know what I mean, because of that. Because again, you're only playing on offense. So if you look at the rest of the resume and how it fills out, yeah, Mahomes on your heels right now. Tom Tuchel, and that's my guy. I done gave Tom Brady his flowers for years on the show. That's my guy.
Yeah, but
we got to give respect where it's due. And Patrick Mahomes, he might be the second coming. He might be.
I think he's. I think he's already here. It's very tough. It's very tough to come up with an argument against Patrick Mahomes. As I said, we put him on Mount Rushmore. We saw that already. If they take this 3P trip, just remember what everybody was saying when they lost Tyreek Hill. When everybody was like, "Oh, we're gonna see how good Mahomes is now." He ain't got Tyreek Hill. I mean, he's only won back-to-back since Tyreek. Meanwhile, Tyreek wants out of Miami.
He trying to get back.
Yeah, Tyreek is sending the "Hey Big Head" text messages as we speak, trying to get back to Kansas City.
Exactly. Shout out to Ron Charles. I want to talk about this Detroit Lions loss. Y'all see the fans blaming Jello Ball for the Lions loss. I believe Cam blamed Jello too but they had their little back and forth. But listen, they lost because of what I text you while that game was on. And what I tell you, Eric, I said the Detroit Lions are the D'Antoni Sons. They don't play any defense, and when you don't play defense and you have a high-powered offense such as the Washington Commanders offense is, they have a great young quarterback. They got some really good receivers. They got a couple of running backs out there. They have a solid offensive line, and they can put up points on you. So if you cannot stop them, it is going to be hard for you, especially when you are turning over the football and you're helping them along the way. Jared Goff, who has played absolutely flawless this entire season. I don't want to take anything away from him. I think he's probably maybe 5 in the MVP voting or something like that. He's played a hell of a season, but you cannot turn the ball over that much when you are playing against another high-powered offense and you don't have guys on the defensive end that can make stops. Aiden Hutchinson was probably their best defensive player, did not play in that game, had a couple of key injuries, and they're not the best defensive team anyway. It just so happens that Aiden Hutchinson is one of the top defensive players, but you take him out of the mix, that changes things a lot. And then again, they're missing a couple other key pieces, and that's how you have a Washington team who is now in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, listen, blaming Jello is purely a social media clickbait. Um, it wouldn't matter who would have performed at that game because they couldn't stop a nosebleed. The Commanders drove up and down the field as much as they wanted. Who you should really be blaming is the Detroit Lions coaching staff. And this is the second straight year that I think when the Lions run back the tape, they're going to say our coaches cost us an opportunity to play for a Super Bowl. Last year against the 49ers, they got way too cute. And I'm talking to Dan Campbell specifically. And were going for it on fourth down when they should have kicked field goals and ended up losing that game by 3. And later on, they said, all right, we probably should have been a little bit more conservative when we had opportunities to take points instead of go for fourth downs. Mm-hmm. What I saw in that game on Saturday was errors by the coaching staff. Now, kudos to Jaden Daniels because I think Jaden Daniels was phenomenal in that game. But there were moments in that game, Trip, where I wondered what the coaches were doing. You saw early on that Jaden Daniels was able to pick up the blitz and execute with the blitz. And yet Aaron Glenn kept blitzing, and I mean zero blitzing, almost like he was playing Madden and saying, I'm not leaving anybody in coverage. I'm just going after the quarterback. At some point, you've got to adjust your game plan and show the rookie something different. I can't keep showing you what I did in the first quarter later on in the game and thinking it's going to work any differently. I've got to mix up my looks. That's the first thing. The second thing, Ben Johnson, he just got the job and got the bag with Chicago. Kudos to him. It's a great job with Caleb Williams. But, Trip, they're down. First, they were up 7-3 in the first quarter, I believe. Yeah, it was still the first quarter. They go for it on fourth down. Back to Dan Campbell again. They get stopped. That's when they get the strip sack on Jared Goff, right? They could have taken the points or they could have executed. But I think if they would have taken the points and you go up 7 points and the crowd is still raucous, you put the Commanders on their heels. Instead, the Commanders get a strip sack. They're only down 7-3. What do? The Commanders come right down the field. They score. They go up 10-7, right? Secondly, Jahmyr Gibbs was averaging damn near 10 yards per carry. Yet, in some of the most critical moments of the game, they didn't give the ball to Jahmyr Gibbs. They had a play, Trip, where they're down 38-28 when they're making their comeback, and they try a reverse wide receiver pass at the end of the third quarter. Now, again, Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, them guys, they've been coaching football for a long time. They probably know more about the game than I do. But I know if I'm down 10 points late in the third quarter and I need to drive, the last person I want throwing the ball is my number 2 wide receiver. Why am I taking the ball out of Jared Goff's hands to let a receiver throw the ball?
Bro.
So
preach to the choir.
I'm just, and again, look at the moments that I'm talking about. These are critical moments where the Commanders are kind of teetering because if you're the Lions, right, you're down at half, you're down 24-10. Jared Goff, that first interception was bad. The second interception was more about ball placement. And shout out to Troy Aikman because he said it perfectly. Jameis Williams is open. It's just that the ball is a little underthrown. If you lead it further up, it's a touchdown. But you get the ball to start the second half, you score. You're back in the game. You got the ball. You're down 10 late in the third quarter. Any points on that possession to get into a one-possession game is going to put a lot of pressure on the Commanders to close out that game. And by the way, the Commanders cannot run the ball. You want to put all the pressure on the Commanders, and instead you let your wide receiver throw the ball. It gets intercepted. The Commanders come down. They score, and then that's pretty much the end of the game at that point. The coaching let down the Lions for the second straight year. Their defense could have been better, but I think the play calling needed to be 1,000% better, especially as you mentioned. Aiden Hutchinson is out. You're missing cornerbacks. Why are we zero blitzing when we're already down to second and third string cornerbacks as is? We need to play more zone coverage. We need to force Jaden Daniels to throw into coverage, not give him wide open receivers that he can throw to.
Let me ask you this. How much of an impact do you think the hit that Jared Goff took had on the rest of his play after that point in the game?
I thought he was okay because, I mean, you saw it in their first drive of the second half. After they get the 3 and out, they come right down the field and score. So yeah. I thought he was okay. The turnovers early put him in a bad spot, but I still thought that there was so much time that if they had just stuck with their plan, Jahmyr Gibbs was gashing the defense, bro. And even when you're down 10 points, you can still run the ball. Football is a long game. Remember, I texted you that yesterday. I'm like, these games, people don't realize like these football games have so many ebbs and flows, and they're such long games that at the end of the day, the Detroit Lions had 11 possessions in that game.
Yeah.
They still scored 30 plus points. Like there were opportunities to get in the game, but you got to manage it better. You got to be better with your play calling. You just can't be too cute with reverse into a wide receiver throw when you're down 10 points.
Yeah, that's the one right there. Was like, hold on, bro. You need to be putting your best. That's if you up by 10 and you want to try something like that. All right. But when you down, the football needs to be in your best players' hands. And well, Jared Goff might not be. I don't know if he's necessarily their best because I probably say St. Brown. But you don't want to have in your best quarterbacks in trying to throw the football.
I mean, right? So, I'm trusting Jared Goff to throw the ball there.
Yeah, exactly. Shout out to Ron. But yes, it was Jello's fault. They should never had him perform. If you got is Detroit and Eminem is there, you get freaking LeAngelo Ball.
I think they were saving Detroit for NFC Championship if they could have got there.
Yeah, well, you should have had Eminem there, at least you could have had D12 or somebody there just from Detroit. Then you warmed up. It's a Big Sean, somebody. What's my girl? Shout out to my girl, Kaya Baby. You could have had Kaya Baby.
Yeah, you could have. Yeah,
at least you know what her fine self. But shout out to Tyson. We're gonna talk a little NBA. Kevin Durant becomes the fourth player to score 3,000 points with 4 different teams. Other players: Moses Malone, World B. Free, Bernard King. Is that impressive, or he's been on 14? Yeah, that's not really impressive. It's not impressive when you're already one of the top players ever, one of the best scorers ever. It's really not impressive because it's basically, are you on the court or you're not on the court? Because if you're on the court and you're that level of talent, you're going to put up those amount of points. And even everybody that you named was that level of talent. Moses Malone, one of the greatest. Bernard King, you know what I'm saying? His run with the Knicks will be free. So, if you're a great player, a great scorer at least, and you're on a team for a long enough time, you should have matched that. Because most of the top scorers are putting up 2,000 in one season anyway. You know what I mean? They're putting up 2,000 points in one season. So we're talking about just 3,000 points, so what you did 2 seasons is enough for you to get to 3,000 points. So it's
pretty much because he's only been in Phoenix for like a year and a half. Remember, he got traded there 2 years ago after the trade deadline. He's done 1 full season. So when you consider the 2 halves with the 1 full season, he's been there 2 years.
That's what I'm saying. So that's not really nothing impressive. That's just him doing what he was going to be doing,
right?
No matter what. It's Kevin. What did he say? I'm Kevin Durant. Yes, he's Kevin freaking Durant. Like that's what he's going to be doing. There's nothing special about that. No slight to Kevin Durant, but just there's nothing special about that.
Yeah. To me, I don't think it's nothing special. I think that's more to do with just the fact that he's been on 4 teams. We know
he won a championship with all 4 of those teams. That would be impressive.
Yeah, but I mean, like I said, it's really just about him being on 4 teams. Those are numbers that he would have accumulated anywhere. If he would have stayed in OKC, these scoring numbers would have still been the same. It would have just been 1 team as opposed to 4 teams. So I don't think there's anything impressive about it.
Let me ask you this while we're talking Kevin Durant, because I was watching Jeff Teague. I'm not sure if it was his podcast or another podcast, but they were talking about Giannis versus Kevin Durant. I just want to know, who you taking, Giannis or Kevin Durant?
It's a good question. In terms of skill, Kevin Durant. He's far more skilled than Giannis. But if you're telling me within a team concept, I probably would prefer Giannis because Giannis can impact the game in more ways. We know Giannis is a really good defensive player. We know Giannis can be a physically imposing force and a nightmare to match up against. And I just think you can do more things in terms of the team aspect with Giannis. With Kevin Durant is great, but we also have to rely on what we've seen so far. Kevin Durant is at his best when he has other great players around him. Giannis was able to win a championship with just good players around him. He didn't need great guys around him. So to me, that just speaks to his impact and the versatility of his game, that if you just give me some good players, I could take you home to a championship. Whereas Kevin Durant, you got to put me with great players just to be in the conversation.
They got to be super great because he was with some great players in OKC. And in Brooklyn, he was with some great players.
Yeah.
So you got to be a super elite.
I think
Curry's of the world.
one of the biggest knocks on Kevin Durant when it's all said and done, and Lord willing that we're blessed enough, to still be talking sports 10 years from now, 15 years from now.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that I think is going to be the biggest knock is that he's played with some great players. And then when you look at those great players with other people, those players have actually been more successful. Like Kyrie and Durant never worked, yet somehow Kyrie with Luka does. Right? Devin Booker went to a finals without Kevin Durant, yet with Kevin Durant, they can't get past second round of playoffs. Like that to me is going to be one of the glaring things we talk about with Kevin Durant, that these are great players. Just for some reason with Kevin Durant, it never lives up to what it's supposed to be. Yet somehow when they're with other people, they reach their max potential.
Yeah. Let me just say this. I would just because I would take Giannis over Durant, because I do agree with you. If we're talking about just skilled on the offensive side of the basketball, it's Kevin Durant's a better shooter. But the problem is for me is that would get canceled out, because if Giannis is averaging 30 and you averaging 30, it kind of don't really matter how much more skilled you are if y'all both scoring the same amount of points. But then when you look on the other side, Giannis is probably one of the most elite two-way players still that we have. Being a defensive player of the year, all NBA defense and all of that. I don't think Kevin Durant has any all NBA defensive appearances, if I'm not mistaken. So no. I would give the edge to Giannis. Let me go to Hypeballer Hoops comment. He says, first of all, pause. We were not on Durant. We were talking about Durant. But since y'all having a conversation about Durant, what places should retire his jersey? Obviously OKC. He got an MVP there. Got him to the finals. I would say Golden State should retire his jersey there. 2 finals MVPs, 2 championships there. 3 appearances, even though I guess he didn't play in the third one. Those 2, Brooklyn didn't accomplish enough in Brooklyn, and again, we're here in Phoenix right now. And you see what's going on, so no, that not Phoenix. So yeah, Golden State and OKC.
I mean OKC for sure. Brooklyn, no. Phoenix, no. And Golden State, maybe. I think he did great things there, winning back-to-back championships, and he did play a major part in getting them to 3 straight finals. Mm-hmm. But he was only there for 3 years. And
the only reason I'm saying that's because he got the 2 finals MVPs there.
Right. That's
like
and I don't mean to be negative in terms of his stay in Golden State, because I do think there needs to be some sort of acknowledgement for what he did there. Like you said, back-to-back finals MVP. But to retire the jersey, I'm going to lean more towards a no. Like I said, you were only there 3 years. It was great, but they were already an NBA champion before you got there.
Yeah,
it's similar to the debate that we've had about, like, should Toronto retire Kawhi's number? Because Kawhi's 1 year is probably the most meaningful season in Toronto Raptors history.
Yeah, so that's why I say yes, I would retire from Toronto, because
right.
I don't think they're gonna get another championship, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So at least not for
even Tyson said right there, he said that's like Kawhi in Toronto, even though he won 1. Right. Like Kawhi's
now, would you be upset if Golden State retired his jersey?
No. I wouldn't be upset, because I understand from a historical perspective, again, they went back-to-back championships. He was the MVP of both those championships, and he was a major part of them getting to the third one. He just ended up getting hurt on the journey to the third one. But those 3 years, 60+ wins every year. He was phenomenal, while he was there. It's just unfortunate he got hurt towards the end. I just think that it's tough to retire a jersey for a 3-year contribution.
Now, okay, so hold on, because let me go back now. Is it because LeBron got 4 years in Miami? Is 4 years okay?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about that too, and I think Bron will get it in Miami.
Unless Pat Riley's just still beefing with him.
Nah, I think Pat will acknowledge. But see, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if they will do it as just like we're retiring Bron's number himself, or they will do something to just acknowledge the 4 years of the Heatles. And it might be one of them things where it's like, obviously Wade's number goes up in the rafters, but maybe we just put up a banner to recognize the contributions for those 4 years of what you guys did for us. It might be one
Now,
of those.
I will say this because now the difference is LeBron's resume in Miami is better than Kevin Durant's resume.
It's a stronger case, yeah.
Golden State, because he does have the 2 regular season MVPs.
Yeah.
With Miami,
I would say
that might be enough to push him.
Yeah, you got the regular season MVPs, you got the finals MVPs. They made 4 straight trips to the NBA finals and won 2 of them. So yeah, you can make the case. I think even 4 years is tough, man, but then again, maybe I'm speaking for myself, we got to adjust the way we look at these careers of players, because this is the modern day NBA. Nobody really stays with a team for 8, 9, 10 years. Most of these guys are at these places for a few years and then they move on.
So Hypebolo Hoop says, since we're talking about it, does Candace Parker go up in Chicago despite only playing 2 years? Yeah, that's
Correct me if I'm wrong though.
That's a tough one.
Didn't she help them win their first one though, right?
Yes.
See, and that goes back to the Kawhi statement, where maybe her impact in those 2 years and what she just did for the franchise, those might be the 2 most impactful seasons of that franchise.
Yes. So that's the thing. But see,
because again, think about what we're talking about. KD and Golden State, it can't hold the same weight because Golden State was champions before him. They were champions after him. That's Steph Curry's team. So his impact isn't going to be felt the same as Candace Parker in Chicago, where there wasn't much history before Candace Parker.
Yeah. So for that, I could I wouldn't be mad.
Right. I wouldn't be mad either way.
The only difference I will say is, going back to Tyson's comment about Toronto, is where I don't see in the foreseeable future any hope of them even getting back to a championship. I don't feel the same way with the Chicago Sky. I feel like, I'm saying, it's open. But again, yeah, I'm not upset if they chose to retire Candace Parker jersey, because it was the most impactful season in the franchise's history.
Yeah.
If they don't get another ring, it's like, all right, well, she is a big part of bringing the championship, and
Yeah, I mean, I think that plays a big factor in it, because you got to look at that player's time there and what did it mean for the franchise. Like and I'm just using different players now at this point, but we've talked about it. Carmelo Anthony is a better basketball player than Jalen Brunson, but Jalen Brunson's time with the Knicks may be more impactful because of where the Knicks were as an organization and what he's been able to do there. Nobody's doubting that Melo was the better player, but if you're telling me, for as bad as the Knicks were coming out of the Phil Jackson era, to then kind of find a diamond in the rough in Jalen Brunson, and now he turned you into a legitimate team, that means more. It's more impactful. Candace Parker going to Chicago, helping them raise their first banner and making them relevant, that holds a lot of weight.
How many years would KD have to play with the Suns to possibly get a jersey of the Raptors? I don't think it's about the years. I think it's about what he's able to accomplish in Phoenix, because let's just say he stays there he plays 6 more years, right? And so he has 6 years in Phoenix, right? But what did he accomplish? Did they get to any finals? Did he get any MVPs? Was he first team All NBA? Was he all defense? Like, what did he accomplish in Phoenix? Because right now it's just going to be, all right, well, yeah, he scored, let's say he finishes there with 7,000 points, 4,000, 2,000 rebounds, 1,000 assists. That's not really enough to retire his jersey. So I think it's going to be more so about what they're able to accomplish. And I just, looking at the team like right now, I don't know what they can accomplish, because I don't even know what they're going to do, because I think they're already trying to move some pieces around. They're trying to figure out if Bradley Beal will waive that trade clause. There's so much going on, so I just don't know what's going to happen with the Phoenix Suns to even say if he'll be able to accomplish anything.
And I don't think it matters the years. I really think it matters more impact. I'll use Barkley as an example, and I even wanted to double check, because I know Barkley's numbers retired there, but Barkley only played with the Suns 5 seasons.
Well, wasn't his MVP with Phoenix?
Right. but so that goes back to what we talked about with impact.
Yeah.
MVP of the league, he led them to an NBA Finals. So his 5 seasons, the impact on that franchise and how relevant he made them in the early 90s holds major weight. Yes. Again, this is an organization that has never won an NBA championship. And prior to Barkley, I think, I could be wrong, I think they went to one NBA Finals in the early 80s when they lost to Boston. So
since they haven't been back to a final.
Right. So when Barkley came in the early 90s and wins an MVP and takes them, you're talking about a team that had gone over a decade without even making it to the NBA Finals, let alone winning. They obviously they didn't win then, but his impact on that team and that city is a completely different thing. Because now we're not just talking about a great player in your city. We're talking about a great player who now is elevating the team and the city now. He's putting you on a national level now where people are checking for the Phoenix Suns. So KD, if he's in Phoenix, let's say 5 more years, and he ends his career there, but they never make the NBA Finals, he never wins a regular season MVP, there's no way we could say that's more impactful than what Charles Barkley did there in his 5 years.
Yeah.
So
now, is it more impactful than Steve Nash?
I don't no, because Nash won back-to-back MVPs, and Nash again. Remember, for 3 or 4 years, the Suns were in the Western Conference Finals. They were battling toe-to-toe. They were battling toe-to-toe. They never made it to the finals, but they were going toe-to-toe with San Antonio every year.
That's why I asked you, because it's like, you know what? Because that I would say Steve Nash is probably, if we're just talking about impact, we're talking about most notable Suns players. He's the only person that comes close to Charles Barkley.
Right.
But getting them to a finals, you lost to the GOAT. You know what I'm saying? Like, no, there's no shame in losing in the finals to Michael Jordan.
Right.
And you won MVP, but you got them there. Can you argue that Amari Stoudemire was the better player out of the two when they're in Phoenix? Can you argue that?
I'll go a step further. I think Joe Johnson was better than Steve Nash, and they gave up on Joe Johnson too quick. But yes, Amari was, I think, the best player. I think Nash was the perfect leader for that team. Yes. But prime Amari Stoudemire was giving Tim Duncan fits. You can look back even before they traded for Nash when Marbury was the point guard, and they had that series in the first round against the Spurs, where I believe Amari averaged like 33 and 14 in that series against Tim Duncan. Amari was a problem before the knee injuries robbed him of some of his athleticism. And by the time he got to the Knicks, he wasn't the same player. He was good for the first 2 years, but he wasn't quite the same player. Yeah. But in terms of, you're talking about who was the better player, Amari was the better player. Nash was the great leader.
Let me go to this one. How impressive has Cade Cunningham been? You know what? He's been great. The problem is still the Pistons right now, and they're just not. You know what I mean? Like, they're just not good. So he's not gonna get the talk that he probably would get if he was playing on a team that was actually winning. But yeah, listen, he's. I would say he's gotten better every year. I think he has lived up to the hype. It's just, he's in the second place right now with the Detroit Pistons.
Oh, I'll say this. I think obviously the Pistons don't get enough nationally televised games for people to realize how good Cade Cunningham is. Cade Cunningham, I think, is in the same place that Shai Gilgeous was in 3 years ago. Yes. When Oklahoma City was still putting talent around him. And for people who love basketball and were paying attention, we could see that Shai was skilled, but we knew Oklahoma City just wasn't good. So it's the same thing with Cade now. Cade is a phenomenal player. Detroit is a 500 team. They beat the Rockets earlier today, which is a good win because the Rockets are another good up-and-coming team as well. But I think in another year or two, when Detroit is truly a playoff caliber team, Cade will start to get the recognition he deserves. But I think he's been phenomenal this year, and he's just a tough spot. Again, Detroit's a 500 team. They're battling to hope to get into a playing game, so enough people just aren't seeing them yet.
I mean, another guy who I think, was having that issue, but now we're seeing the team have some type of success is Paolo, right? Now that Orlando is making the playoffs, they're in that, they're regular in playoff contention teams. He's getting those talks. He made his all-star team. He's getting those. It will happen for Cade. They just have to, as a team, start winning more basketball games and become at least a playoff team. You know what I mean? And then he'll start getting that talk. Let me jump back up to the top. There was a question. Okay, here we go. From Tyson. Title game tonight. Who you got? Ohio State or Notre Dame? Notre Dame has the black head coach, if I'm not mistaken, right?
That is correct.
I'm gonna go for the team with the black head coach. I'm sorry, and I think Ryan Clark's son plays for Notre Dame as well, and I rock with Ryan Clark. So my preference would be Notre Dame. I don't really have a dog in the race on this one. So either way, what I'm saying, don't really matter. But in the words of the great Issa Rae, I'm rooting for everybody black.
Yeah, I think that I felt like Ohio State probably was the best team for most of the year, so I think Ohio State would win tonight. The game is on now, no score yet, but I think Ohio State wins. But I wouldn't be mad if Notre Dame wins, and I am hoping that it's a very good and competitive game.
Yeah. With that being said, let's jump into the final thought. Before we do that, though, let me just say this. It is Martin Luther King Day, and we want to pay homage to one of our greatest leaders, period, in the history of this world, the late, great Dr. Martin Luther King. Sleep in peace, King, which is crazy. That's a double entendre because his name is King. And I'm saying sleep in peace, King. I'm very happy, Eric, and you'll appreciate this because this is something that we spoke about on the Shooting the Shit podcast. I'm very happy that I didn't see a bunch of flyers where y'all, trying to gain money off of Martin Luther King and you putting Dr. King on these flyers. I'm so happy. I did not see a bunch of that this year. I don't know. I haven't been on IG just that much today, but when I was on there, I didn't see a bunch of MLK club flyers. So I'm very happy about that. I did see a lot of posts representing Dr. King, and I love that. But Eric, give us your final thought.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think, we joke about that, but I think this year, because of the other event that's taking place today, the inauguration. No, I know, but let's say this. I think that's why people were a little bit more mindful of the things they posted today, because they understood that today was already being a little tarnished by the fact that they chose to have the inauguration today on this specific day. And I think people were a little bit more mindful of, like, let's not even joke with it because they're already joking with it. You know what I'm saying? Let's not make it worse. But with that being said, as always, we thank the supporters. We love you guys. We greatly appreciate you guys, man. There are a lot of times, I know Trip feels this way, and I definitely feel this way, where we might be tired. We got other things going on in life, but we greatly appreciate the effort you guys put forward to lock in with us every week and motivate us, because this dialogue becomes just a great opportunity for us to not only talk sports, but kind of see what you guys are thinking about it and see how you guys are viewing the games. So we greatly appreciate it. Trip and I have already been in talks, and we got some things we're trying to plan over the next few months. So just bear with us, and we hope you guys like those things. And everybody just be safe out there, man. If you're on the East Coast, I know we've been getting some inclement weather, so just be safe out there and, keep rocking with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, my final thought is, man, just appreciate y'all. Thank you, everybody. Stay tuned. We got some things. We got some things. We under construction right now, so we got some things going on that we're working on for you guys. It's going to be soon to come. So just stay in tune with us. And big shout out to Cortez. If you guys missed it, the interview with Cortez is up on the YouTube channel. Go back and check that out as well. Make sure you guys are following us on all our social media. Instagram, Twitter, @RealFanTalk, Facebook.com/RealFansRealTalk. And of course, subscribe to that YouTube channel. You see it there, YouTube.com/For the Fans Productions. If you're not in New York and you can't watch us on Verizon 43 at 8 p.m. on Thursday nights, don't worry, you can watch us from anywhere in the world. Just click that red button on the homepage at RealFansRealTalk.com, and you can watch from anywhere in the world. And of course, make sure you guys subscribe to the Two Best Podcasts Movement. That's the Sanchez Show podcast and the Real Fans Real Talk podcast. We ain't finished yet. In the words of one of the greatest DJs ever, we ain't going nowhere. All right. So with that being said, for myself, Trip Young, my brother Eric Sanchez, aka Legend in 2 Games, we up out of here. Peace.
This is Deion Grant from the New York Giants, Super Bowl champ, and you're watching Real Fans Real Talk.
Live from the can. Vibe the king.
This is Real Fans Real Talk. Real Fans Real Talk. We as real as you thought.